All right, this video is going to walk you through how to make histograms. The first thing you might be wondering is, what is a histogram? Well, a histogram kind of looks like a bar chart. It's a graph that shows the distribution of data across different intervals. And each of these intervals are called classes. And in the graph itself, you're trying to say how often each data value fell underneath these different intervals or classes. In order to make this histogram, we have to consider three things. We have to figure out how wide to make these intervals, or calculate the class size, and then also we have to take then the frequency of each data value and say how many fall under each of the different intervals in a frequency table, and then we translate the frequency table over into a histogram. So let's take an example of a lemonade stand. Let's say you're trying to sell lemonade throughout the summer and you're getting customers each day, and one day you might get 13, you might get 25 another, and then 23 another day, and 4. But all the data then you take that you end up collecting gets put into a numerical order so you can better work with the data. So after you've got the numbers in numerical order, you want to consider what the minimum value is and what the maximum value is. So in order to figure out how wide you want your classes to be, you would then round down to the nearest 5, which in this case would round this down to 0, and round this up to the nearest 5 on the maximum end. Now, if the number is already at the 5s, you have to add 5 more, or else it won't fit in all of our classes. So we'll add 5 to this and think about 50. So from 0 to 50 is what we're thinking for our minimum and our maximum values. And then if I take 50 minus 0, I get 50. And let's say if I wanted to have 5 classes, you'd take 50 divided by 5, and then you'd have 10. So your intervals would count by 10s. You'd have 0, 10, 20, 30, and so on for each of your different marks along the x-axis. If you wanted to have 6 intervals, you would take 50 like this divided by 6, and then you get 8.3. You would not want to round that down, because if you round it down to 8, the 45 may not fit inside all the 6 classes. So it's important if you ever have a number like this that doesn't work out nice, round it up to like 8.5, and then you'll be guaranteed that all 6 classes can fit all the numbers in all the data values in your set. So let's just think about this as 5 classes where we divide by 5 and get increments or intervals of 10. So if I'm going to do intervals of 10, since 0 was our minimum value, that needs to be the first thing you type or write in your values of your table. So down here I would have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and you'll be tempted to say 50, but there's only 5 classes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next thing you want to do is show the interval. The interval is going from 0 to, and you want to say 10, but 10's already covered here. So it would go from 0 to 9, and the 10 would go from 10 to 19, the 20 would go to 29, the 30 would go to 39, and the 40 would go to 49. Then what you do is you look at your data values and say, how many of each of those fall into each of these different classes or intervals? Well, the 4 falls in there, so I have 1, 4. I have 3 numbers that are in the teens, 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 numbers in the 20s, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I've got 1 number in the 30s, and I got 1 number in the 40s. Now I've covered all my data values in this set of intervals or classes, and now we're going to translate that over to this histogram graph that we're going to make next. Since I was counting by 10s on the left-hand side here, I add those into the graph over here. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I put 50 on here just because the bar needs to go over to the next increment over. Next, you're going to ask yourself, well, what's your biggest number of frequency? In this case here, I have a 4. So I'll put 4 at the top here, and then I'll try to scale it appropriately so that this is halfway, that's 2, and then let's put the 3 and the 4 in here so we can actually see that as well. And then I just show a bar chart. So the first bar is going to go up 1 time because you only had 1 count of the values that were in the range of 0 to 9. Put a 1 above that. If you want to color it in, have a little more fun. And then the next bar goes up to 3. So I'd have 3 values that were in the range of 10 to 20 or 10 to 19, and then I would color that in nicely, hopefully, and then have show how many times you had in there. Then the next one goes up to 4. Make that bar, color it in nice, whatever you want to do, and then that has a frequency count of 4, and then the last 2 each have a frequency count of 1. And then what you've now done is created your histogram. The only thing you left off now is your labels. Make sure your X and Y axis are counted. The X axis stands for customers, get that a little bit nicer, customers, and your other over here is the count, or the number of times the values fell in that category. So that's the histogram. Good luck, and hopefully this helps in the future questions.